Hey guys, Professor Bill of Comic Book University, and we're going to be doing a spotlight on story for Fantastic Four, issue number 53. Now, there's several firsts in here. The previous issue was the first appearance of the Black Panther, T'Challa, proper. This issue, first appearance of T'Chaka, granted, it's in retrospect, so the father of T'Challa. It's also the first named appearance of Wakandan vibranium, so the first appearance of vibranium proper. On top of that, it's going to be the first appearance of Ulysses Klaw. So he's just called Klaw in here, whatever, but this is going to be his first appearance, and you'll see his indelible tie to the Black Panther and to Wakanda as a whole. All right, guys. So starting off, this story is called The Way It Began. In the previous issue, you got to see the Black Panther. He invited the Fantastic Four over to hang out. A lot of really good commentary from the Thing. Like, of all the commentary from the Thing in many issues, this literally stands as one of my favorites for all the things that he's got to say about what's going on around him. On top of that, we got to see the Black Panther, that Wakanda in general has so much technology. It's insane. They've got technology that doesn't exist anywhere else. In fact, in the issue after this, issue number 54, it's mentioned how Black Panther goes and gives them another piece of technology to use. And they're just like, I forget who it was who said, I think it was, whatever, it was one of the Fantastic Four members. And he says, so I guess that technological inventiveness isn't only situated in one particular climate or territory or anything like that. So it's the idea that, go figure. So it was started very early on. It was actually the first appearance of Wakanda was indicative that the technology in Wakanda, this fictitious nation in Africa, was far greater than anything that had been achieved in America. So, of course, much later it would be expounded upon very differently and everything. But for now, it's just left at that. Now, that's kind of important here. So, starting with this issue, issue number 53. And, of course, we got Stan Lee is the writer here. We've got Jack Kirby is on art. Inking, Joe Sinnott. And Artie Simek, my favorite letterer, is lettering this. There's no witty little, commentary on each person. Usually you'll have like Stan the Man Lee, art by Smiling Jack Kirby or, Jack the King Kirby. And you'll have, something cool about, the amazing shading by Joe Sinnott, something like that. And there'll always be something funny said about Artie Simek. He was the butt of a lot of jokes, but it was always funny. It was always funny, and he took it in really good stride. He loved the jokes. He loved the attention. Plus, when you think about it, he's the one who actually wrote all this stuff. You know what? I've got a Spotlight on Creator story for Artie Simek on Comic Book University. Go check that out. Enough of that here. And then the native dancers. They are attributed to the ballet Forbush Tescriforian troupe. So... the Forbush Man was mentioned a long time ago, but they never actually made the Forbush Man. It was just a joke that Stan Lee would always do. He would always add it into the comics. So you have the Fantastic Four hanging out. They're sitting down watching this dancing group, and the native dancers. T'Challa had just gone in and challenged them all to a fight in the previous issue, just simply to test himself because he knew that something was coming. And in this issue, he explains something is here. He starts talking about the history of Wakanda, how his father, and mind you, in this original history, T'Challa is the first Black Panther. It was not hereditary. It was not anything along those lines. There was no mention of heart-shaped herbs. So the Black Panther was a normal human being who just trained like crazy. He was basically like a Batman. He trained his body to perfection to the point where he could actually defeat superheroes. He had intelligence like you would not believe. He's actually a scientist in and of himself. Much later on, they would talk about he's an expert in shadow physics, which is the comic book version of a physicist who specializes in the study of Wakandan vibranium. So very, very interesting. Actually, vibranium as a whole, because there's also the Savage Lands Antarctic vibranium. So we just have a crazy story here where T'Challa is explaining to everybody how Back in the day, his father was the mightiest of hunters. He just went out there in traditional garb. They used very traditional, primitive weapons. They didn't use the technology. They didn't have any kind of technology or anything like that. It was actually the Black Panther, who was younger, who brought in all of this techno-organic culture to the Wakandans. And it's interesting. It's interesting the way that this is explained. Obviously, this would be retroactively changed multiple times to show that, you know, the history of the Black Panthers is very old, and at very least started with T'Challa's grandfather, Missouri the Wise. But for now, we're going to stick with this origin, where he was the first Black Panther. This happened because when he was a young boy, his father, as tough as he was, this guy Klaw showed up. And there will be many different retrograde, and make sure you check out Klaw Explained in a Minute, that just went up today. So you'll see that there were several aspects changed in Klaw's history and his father's history to explain how he got there. There were even changes later on that would explain that no, Klaw wasn't a scientist at all. He was actually just an assassin who hid in the floorboards of the throne room for 3 weeks in order to just get a shot off on T'Chaka. Either way, it's always been explained that Ulysses Klaw was the man who killed T'Chaka, the father of T'Challa. So in this one, he shows up and he's got a bunch of his hired army with him. It's like, hey man, we're here to take the vibranium. You know, I know it exists and I want it. He's like, what? You're going to get off these lands or we're going to take you out. It's like, oh yeah. So they pull out machine guns and they mow everybody down. Literally. Like that's how, like I said, there was no technology in Wakanda at the time. It was all primitive. All right. Like you would imagine. So T'Challa, he was very young, 13, 14, whatever he was at the time. Maybe he was 8. It doesn't actually say. But he goes and he sees this guy who is lagging behind. He's trying to carry this ridiculously heavy device that Klaw had made. Klaw had made a device that allows you to solidify vibrations, or solidify sound very specifically, into solid mass. And for right now, the only thing it could really do is it can make energy blasts that would blow people away, just, you know, obliterate them. So he's waiting for his weapon to come. Now, the reason why he's here is because he wants that vibranium, because that's the final component to make certain pieces, whatever, so that he could do the things that he's trying to do. And you'll see that later on this issue. So he's able to kill T'Chaka. T'Challa sees this guy with this machine, goes up and just breaks a staff over top of this dude's head. You break the staff, you probably broke the head too. So this guy's not getting back up. So he takes this device. He doesn't know what it does, doesn't know anything about it, but he knows if they were going to use it on us, we can use it on them. So he starts blasting them, and like, dude, the whole countryside is a mess. People are like trying to run away, you know, like, oh my God, what are we going to do against these weapons? So these knuckleheads, thinking that they got the advantage, T'Challa shows up behind them and just starts boom, 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 like Rambo, taking everybody out. Well, these guys start escaping. Klaw's like, don't run, no, we got to fight this guy. T'Challa takes a blast at him. He knows he's the guy who killed his father, and he's only able to hit his right hand and his forearm. And the device actually shatters his hand. Now, make no mistake, when I say shatter, just like I explained in the Explained in a Minute for Klaw, it actually pulverizes it grinds it to a fine powder. There is no healing from this. So he wound up losing his hand eventually. I just said, oh, you broke my hand. No, he shattered your hand, dude. It is jelly at this point. So he retreats. Everybody goes and gets away. Later on, the stories will explain different things. Make sure you check out Spotlight on Story for Killmonger, The Man Called Killmonger, Jungle Action issue number 6. So we get to see that Ulysses Klaw leaves, but Black Panther knows that he's coming back. And I think it's like 10 years to the day, something to that effect. He does show up. But when he shows up, he's got these solid sound creatures. These are big red creatures made out of solid sound. He's making giant apes, giant elephants, like mastodons. He's got a giant leopard at one point, a giant Black Panther, all sorts of different creatures, but they're all giant, they're red, and they're made out of solid sound. One bullet through them actually decimates the thing, but more than that, they explode. And they wind up destroying everything around them. So if you shoot them when they're too close to you, you also die. So this being the case, the Wakandans don't know what to do. It's like, what if they kill us even as they die? What are we going to do? So Black Panther is there. The Fantastic Four are already there. They agree to help because they're just like, dude, wow. And I did mention that this is the first time that Wakandan vibranium was ever mentioned. The Thing keeps on interrupting T'Challa's story at two different points. Saying, oh, geez, I've read this in a Tarzan book. Like, very, very culturally insensitive. So anyway, T'Challa explains to them, it's like, well, how about if I told you that you were sitting on $20 million? Like, what? This marble statue, this marble bench? It's like, oh, this isn't a bench, dude. Look at this. Reed Richards looking at it. This is some kind of ore. Hey, what is this? It's like, oh, it's called vibranium. So it's mentioned long before there's ever an adamantium. It's like, oh, it's vibranium, and check it out. Bang, bang, bang. So, it explains how it absorbs vibrations. So, obviously, using it for sound would be a good thing. Now, much later on, they would explain that Klaw was able to get away. Several issues later, they would explain that Klaw was able to get away with a small fraction of vibranium, just enough to turn his sonic emitter into the device that he wanted, so that it could actually create objects of solid sound, and more, which we'll see later. But for now, it's just explaining he's able to make these devices. So everybody's fighting and trying to take these things down. And Reed Richards, of course, he's got more things to say than possible. And it's funny because Ben Grimm is making fun of T'Challa and Reed Richards now. It's like, oh, geez, these guys are talking. These guys are perfect bedmates. Nobody can understand what each other is saying except them. So it's like, just stick them in a room with each other and have them talk their heads off. So, and Ben Grimm is a lot smarter than he lets on. He really is. So, he went to college with Reed Richards. Don't forget that. So these guys are all fighting all over the place, but Black Panther comes straight up to Klaw. He sees him in this one mountain that he's using. He's got his devices built. He's actually got his proper sound solidifier, his vibrational solidifier there, so that anything that he wants can come out of there. He actually creates a giant Black Panther, but of course it's red. And boom, it comes out, and he's got to fight this thing. He takes it out pretty quickly, but he also mentions, he's like, I'm a scientist also, so I know exactly. As we've been fighting, I've been trying to look at all of your devices here, and I understand how it works. So he shuts it down. He causes it to overload. Now the whole mountain winds up collapsing in on itself, and everybody's able to get away. And Black Panther's like, oh yeah, man, cool, but what am I going to do now? I created this Black Panther persona for vengeance, but now my vengeance is over. I've killed Klaw. What do I do? And everybody puts their hand on Black Panther's shoulder in a show of unity and a show of support. It's like, listen, man, superheroes never go out of business. And, if you help out, you will be welcome. So, boom, all of a sudden, we have our first black superhero in the Marvel Comics. And, any comics, the first black superhero. So, boom, that's that. Except, we also see a bit of an epilogue. We see that Klaw actually survived. His device actually survived. And the only way he could think of to escape, the only way he could think of to enhance himself, I should have mentioned he had the little sonic emitter, a miniaturized version of his sonic emitter to replace his hand as a prosthetic. So yeah, the little radar dish that looks like on his hand, he has that. Anyway, he decides to jump into his vibrational converter himself. He's never tested like that. He just wants to see what's going to happen, because what other choice does he have? Now, much later on, we would see, this doesn't happen in this issue, but much later on, we would see he turns into one of those solid sound creatures. And again, Klaw explained in a minute to see exactly what that's all about. And that's it. That's the end of this story. Black Panther will continue for many stories afterwards. You got the movie coming out in just a month. I've already got my tickets. And that's it. I just wanted to give you guys a brief explanation of what Klaw looks like, guys. All of this and much more below. I've got a link for an Amazon site, so either digitally or physically you could get the copy of multiple stories surrounding the origin of Klaw, different origins, all that good stuff. Definitely check your local comic book store. But if you can't find it there, if they can't order it for you, link below. And that being said, that's all I got. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.